Let's recap the story of the woman at the well. Thank you for joining me on this week-long devotional. It's a gratitude devotional featuring the woman at the well. And we looked at how in our hardships, in our life, in our failures, in our vulnerability, that Jesus still meets us. And because of that, we can be grateful. Now, every day this week, I've challenged you to read John chapter 4, verses 1 through 42, because that's the story of the woman at the well. So to recap, we find the animosity, the discord between the Samaritans and the Jews. So the Jews are the ones that are left. The Samaritans are the ones that stayed and intermingled and married outside of their community. And they were the Samaritans. The Jews thought the Samaritans were unclean. They were half-breeds. And the Samaritans thought the Jews were intolerant. The Jews thought you had to worship at the temple, and they were very strict about it. And the Samaritans were like, no, you can worship at this mountain because it had historical whatever for them. So they argued about many things, and there was great animosity between the two, even though their history was exactly the same. They were the same people, just branched off into two different ones. And so we have them and their discord and their hatred for each other. The Jews especially would go out of their way. They would not travel through Samaria. They would go out of their way just so they wouldn't have to encounter any of the Samaritans. It was that deep. And then we have Jesus, and he says he's a Jew, and he's traveling with his disciples, and he tells them that he must go through Samaria. He has an appointment with a special lady. Now, Jesus meets her at the well. He asks her for water. And I'm imagining her. Now, the Bible says that she came at noon. It was noon. Now, from this information, we gather that she was hiding from society. She had a past. She had a reputation. And we know that normally the woman would meet in the morning or in the evenings when it was cooler to gather their water for the day. And it was a social event. They'd come and they'd check on each other. They'd talk, they laugh, all the things. But this lady came at noon when she was alone, probably because of her reputation. She was just clothed in guilt and shame, and she was very vulnerable, and it was very hard for her. But Jesus met her, and every time that we see him having this conversation with her, he's drawing out her curiosity, and he's speaking truth to her, but not condemnation. The Bible says that Jesus tells her, go get your husband. She's like, I don't have a husband. And Jesus says, you're right. You've had 5 husbands, and the husband you're with now, the man you're with now, is not your husband. And I have mentioned before, but I think she gets a bad rap because we don't know. A lot of people just assume that, she was just jumping men after men. But if we look at the historical context here, women could not file for divorce. It was men. And we don't know if she was a widow in any of those situations either. And if she came from a family of deep poverty, and her husband passed away, it could have left her in deep poverty and very vulnerable. And then men just cycled through her. That's a possibility. We don't know. Now, it could be, partially her fault as well. We don't know, but I just want to give her a little bit of break there and take in some of the historical context. So we have Jesus here, and he knows her past. And he reaches through all these boundaries. Him a male, her a female, him a Jew, she a Samaritan. All these things, and he just plows right through these barriers and offers her love and grace and a connection. And there's so many exciting first. She's the first one that Jesus clearly announces that he is the Messiah. He chose a woman, a Samaritan woman, and a Samaritan woman with a bad reputation at that, to be the first one that he declares openly that he is the Messiah. And she is the first one mentioned that goes and tells everyone about Jesus and her conversation with him and all he had told her. And because of her, the Bible says many came to believe and came to seek him out for themselves. So it's an exciting story. Please go and read it. John 4, verses 1 through 42. It's only 42 verses. And really just let her example settle deep into your heart and see how Jesus, fully knowing her story, fully knowing her vulnerability, her past, the shame that she carried, the guilt that she carried, the poverty probably that she carried, the hardship, the heartbreak, and how he just starts lifting those layers during their conversation. And she leaves the water jar, which represents her past, her brokenness, and she runs out into a town and tells them all about Jesus. She came to the water jar hiding from her town, and she has an encounter with Jesus that completely changes her life. She leaves her water jar and runs back into town, getting everyone's attention and sharing her testimony. It's a lovely story. So please go and read it again. Work through the devotional. If you're behind, no worries. We operate in grace here, so catch up when you can, today if possible. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. And thank you, ladies, for being here with me. Bye.